Hello everyone, today we will be talking about theory and literary criticism. Literary theory, by definition, is philosophical discussion of literature's goals and methods, which is used to further understand literature. Literary criticism is the study, evaluation, and interpretation of literature. These two literary tools can be used together to provide an evaluation of a literary theory and further the understanding and interpretation of literature. Some types of literary criticism include formalist, biographical, psychological, historical, reader response, gender, and cultural criticism. A quote by Bill Savage of Northwestern University further explains literary criticism. Does literature reflect life, or does literature create it? Is it a lamp that illuminates or a mirror that shows us what's already there? Literary theory is how culture thinks about itself. The literary critical conversation is the thinking about the thinking. How do we figure out what is being said? Why should it matter? Why should we care?
Modern literary theory started in the late 1920s and 30s in response to evolving approaches concerned with traditional narrative history.
It's time to stop!
Also referred to as New Criticism, the theory approaches literary art as an autonomous work, meaning that it stands alone by itself and should not be judged with outside considerations. Traditional forms of literary criticism took into account the meaning of individual words and their relation to history and comparative sources, as well as the general structure of the text. This was deemed to distract from the text itself.
It's time to stop, okay? No more!
Major figures in the development of the new critical methodology included I.A. Richards and T.S. Eliot, as well as a few others. Moving on to the idea of archetypal criticism. According to Irina Makaric from the University of Toronto, an archetype is defined as a typical or recurring image, character, narrative design, theme, or other literary phenomenon that has been in literature from the beginning and regularly appears. Two notable interpretations of this theory include Northrop Frye and Carl Jung.
Jung proposed that we as a human race have a collective unconscious, a kind of universal connection of thoughts which appear in our dreams. The dreams contain themes and images that we all inherit as a result of society's influences. Archetypal images encourage viewers and readers to act on widespread beliefs and fears, those which have been enforced for generations. This shows not only the intelligence and impact of these texts, but also the natural desire and anxieties of humankind. Joseph Campbell and other major figures such as Robert Graves, Francis Ferguson, Philip Wheelwright, Leslie Fiedler, Maud Bodkin, and G. Wilson Knight view plot patterns within literature as a presence of popular archetypes and the reliance on common myth formula. Modern archetypes are represented through the sun, moon, colors, circles, the Great Mother, and other symbols.
Since myths and religions have always followed the same archetypes, they cannot be the exclusive right of any particular race, religion, or region. So this, in a sense, is Campbell's way of saying that you can't really pinpoint or one religion or one source of a story since, well, they all follow similarities shared worldwide for hundreds and thousands of years. Now, the similarities which tie all of their works together is the fact that we all share similar behaviors and patterns when we see things we recognize. Now, for example, if you saw a big human figure at night slowly walking towards you, holding what appears to be, I don't know, a hammer or a knife or a bat, your first instinct would probably be to be cautious. We've all seen way too many horror films, and we're smart enough to know that it's probably a serial killer. Now, if the person passes by you and it turns out that they were just holding a microphone or a lunchbox or something, and they just have a really big hoodie on, you are probably safe. But most of us share the same instinct. Other examples are, let's say, gods. Humans' depictions of what gods physically look like. So they're almost always seen physically in the image of man. Even in movies, even if they shine bright or you can't really tell their features, they will always probably have, arms, legs, a torso, and a head. So we all share similar archetypes because we've been using those archetypes and symbols since the beginning of time. So I hope you all have a great day.
Narratology in theory and literary criticism is a branch of knowledge that deals with the structure and function of narratives and its themes, conventions, and symbols. The article supports the ideas of narratology by demonstrating how repetitive the themes and symbols are occurring in literature or film. The idea of the archetype allows the reader to contextualize and make meaning of each narrative. While archetypes may be similar within its meanings, how they are interpreted can differ among audiences because they are generally considered to be, quote-unquote, universally understood experiences. Narratology provides a basic foundation or framework for the reader to make sense of narratives as a whole. It should also be noted that archetypes are just one aspect of a narrative and therefore cannot limit an author's ability to create a complex or enjoyable piece of work.
Jung emphasized primordial images and psychic residue to be the very backbone to archetypes, since it creates a sense of emotion to the audience through the themes and symbols present within it. By using our ancestors' experience and through collective unconscious expressed in myths, religion, dreams, and private fantasies, primordial images and psychic residue help create archetypes that are relatable or enticing to us all. Archetypes mediate the total dream of humankind. It creates an ideal or expectations that we may believe to be reality, and it taps into our fears, anxiety, and desires. This allows us to relate to characters or symbols. And at the same time, these movies and shows could create a certain meaning for the viewer, as it could be similar to something they have went through or are currently experiencing, making their own experiences relatable. They reoccur often enough in literature and film that it becomes embedded into our minds as elements in one's imaginative experiences. Archetypes are consistent themes, which create an expectation for the viewer that might be projected onto people or places in real life because their lives could, by a very small chance, play out just like the film did.